let's review what we did yesterday. We're doing word problems again like we did some time back, okay? Only this time we have a new tool in our arsenal, right? Other than, say, a linear equation, we have quadratics now, right? What's what's the formula for the area of any rectangle there, kids? Length times width, or width times length, whatever, right? And like in this one, they gave you what the area was, right? Okay. And they also said that the length is 1 less than twice the width, right? So here, you write that down. The length here being 1 less than, right? What? Twice the width. Okay. So over here, the equation you want, right? We know that W times L is area, right? In this case, it's 45. But where did I get this next line? You see what L equals? What you can do with things that are equal? You can replace them with one another, yeah? Okay. And so then once we set this part up here, what did we do? Distributed, right? And we ended up with a W squared and a W term. And in that case, what does it have to equal to solve it? Right? Remember, it has to equal 0. How do we make that happen? Right? Now we have it equal to 0. And then we do what? Once you get a quadratic equal to 0, what do? Factor it some way, right? Some method of factoring, okay? Always look for what first? Yeah, because that might simplify your life a little bit, right? There wasn't one here, so we had to use which method? Why did we have to use the A times C method? In front of the W squared, right? Something other than 1 in front of it, okay? And, I'm going to go through, hopefully we know how to do that already. But then we found what W was, okay? Were we done? Because it said find the dimensions. What's the other dimension if you got W? L, okay? Down here, square. You know about squares, right? Somebody tell me what you know about a square.
It's got 4 equal sides.
All sides are equal, right? So if one side of a square is length X, what's the length of every other side? X. So the length and width of the square is what in what? X and X. All right. And so how do you find the area of a square if the side length is X? X times X, length times width is the same, right? But what did they tell us in this one? They turned the square into a what? How did they turn the square into a rectangle? What was the first thing they did? Right? So if one side of the square is X and they increased it by 2, rectangle's got a side X plus 2, right? What did they do to the other side? Reduced it, decreased it by 2. So if that's X, this one's X minus 2, right? So how are we going to find the area of this square? We need to find X, right? Right? They told us the area of the rectangle, so we can use that to find X. How do you find the area of a rectangle, everybody? Okay, here's my length times width, isn't it? Equaling what they said the area was. This is going to end up being a quadratic, isn't it? Okay, look what happened here. What happened with this one? Yeah. Didn't it just end up being the different 2 squares?
Yeah, I feel like busy.
Lunars?
That's
So did this have to equal 0 to solve it? Did this have to equal 0 in order to solve it? Why not? It doesn't have an extra. It's got X squared, right? So we can just add 4 to both sides, take the square root, right? And we got that X is 8 inches, but we weren't done. They wanted the area of the square. 8 times 8 is 8 squared. I think this is the last one we did in this class, right? All right, so if they ever tell you got like 2 numbers or 3 numbers, right? And say they're consecutive integers, you know what consecutive means, right? One right after the other, like 3, 4, 5, 6, they're all consecutive. Okay. So what do you usually let stand for the first number? N. How do you know it's 1? Right? You don't know, right? And what do we let stand for I don't know in that? Amy? Yeah. Why not use n for number, right? Use x if you wanted to, right? Well, if n is the first number, what's the next consecutive number?
Oh.
N plus 1. If there was a third consecutive number, what would it be? N plus 2. Okay? Well, let's see what they, well, it's a little bit different, right? So this one is a little complicated. We wanted to break it up, right? Product of 7 less than 3 times the number. We'll let n be the number, right? So I wrote down here, 7 less than 3 times that number, right? And they also had 1 more than the number. That's easy, isn't it? 1 more than the number would be what? Okay. And it said the product of those two. What does product mean to do with math, guys? Multiply. Okay? The product is equal to what? See this? Being 2 less than what? 10 times the number, right? So it's the product of these first two equals that third one. And what do we do here? Distribute twice, right? And then what? Combine like terms. Will it have to equal 0? How come? No, that's when we would use the 8 times. There's n squared and n in it, so it has to equal 0. How do we make that happen? No. Subtracted 10n from both sides and what? Right? So over here, that all became 0, and you add and subtract it underneath its like terms if they're there. If they're not there, it just gets tacked on, right? Here it is equaling 0, and no GCF, right? AC method again, okay? And we got 2 answers. All right? Well, let's start then with exercise 4. Read that over. What do they want us to find? 2 consecutive integers, right? So it's that what? Yeah, okay, well, let's start with that, right? So the smallest one is going to be what? N equals the smaller integer, right? And the next one will be n plus 1, right? Equals the larger, okay? Well, unless they happen to be, you know, negatives, then that might not, maybe you want to think about reading, but leave it that way for now. And what does it say about these 2 numbers? Their product. What does product mean? So multiplying these 2 is, wait, the word is in a word problem usually means, okay, good. 8 less than what? How do we write 8 less than 10 times the smaller?
8 minus.
No, not 8 minus.
8n.
No, that's 8 times the number.
10.
Start with the 10 times the smaller, which would be what? 10n. How do we do 8 less than that?
Minus 8.
There you go. There's our 3 things, right? And it says the product.
Yeah.
So what's our equation? 10n minus 8, right? So if you can get the setup on these, it's just like all the other quadratics we've been solving, right? So what now? Yeah, distribute. What do we get? Yeah? What do we need to do here, folks? Well, why, though? Yes, we do. So we'll subtract 10n, and what else? 10n plus 8. And over here, is the 8 going to have a like term over here? No, so minus 10n plus 8 somewhere in there will go up to the right. So what does that give us when we add these up? N squared minus 9n plus 8 equals 0. Now we have a quadratic equal. Now to say, what do we do now? What do we always do once we get an equal to 0? Factor it. What method are we going to use here?
No.
You can, but we don't need it. It's overcooked, right? We can do it.
You do the N and
This is the simpler one, right?
find what
Just 2 sets of parentheses. Get halfway done with it. N and N equals 0.
8 and
8 and -1, you say?
no, negative 8 and 1.
Negative 8 and 1?
Yeah. No.
Hmm.
No.
Well, let's just start. Somebody tell me these two numbers have to multiply to what? They have to multiply to positive 8 and also what? Add to -9. Amy? So negative times a negative is a positive, right?
Yeah.
So that multiplies to 8, and do they add to -9? Okay, you know what to do now, right? What do we do now? So we get n minus 8 equals 0, or n minus 1 equals 0. What does n equal here? Equal, now hold on, right? So if n is 8, what's the next integer? Is what?
2.
What does n equal? So n plus 1 must equal what? 9. Okay? Or what? N equals, and what's the other one? What's n plus 1 equal? 2. So there's our 2 solutions, right? You see what it said? Find all sets. Turned out there were 2 sets of numbers that met that requirement. 8 and 9 will work, and 1 and 2 will work. Do we have any questions on this one? What do you think? Is there any part of that where you were confused? Well, maybe, but we did. I mean, I turned you loose on the homework because I know we've done these kind of problems with n and n plus 1 before, and the only thing we're mixing in now is quadratics, right? Remultiplying. All right, let's take a look at number 5. You guys read over number 5. What's this kid's claim?
The number 5 has the property that requires 3 less than x with 1 more, that it's the same as 3 times 1 less than n.
Well, let's just, yeah.
That is so confusing. I think Brandon.
So let's think of it this way. He's saying that the number 5 will do all this stuff when we do other things to it. Forget what it is right now, okay? All right? We want to show his claim is true algebraically. All right? So basically it's going to be for one particular number. So let's forget for a minute that it's a number 5, right? So let's use some variable. Like what? Okay. So let's use a variable n, do stuff that they said to do to it, and see if it turns out that n is 5. See what I mean?
Yeah, but this is
Instead of just doing like trial and error with 5, what's that?
this is just everything about this is so confusing.
I know it's supposed to be. If you're not confused, you're not learning, right?
Oh, I'm not learning.
I mean, we could sit here and do it. So let's let n equal the number that he says is 5. And I'll just put in parentheses. Could it be 5, right? All right.
Watch it not be 5. How's that?
Okay. So what's the property? It's a product, so we're going to be multiplying a couple things. Product of what?
3 less.
3 less than it. Okay, this is not confusing. If the number is n, how do you write 3 less than it?
N minus 3.
Okay. Product of n minus 3 with what?
1 more than it is.
n plus 1 is equals
3 times 1 less than
3 times 1 less than
3n.
it.
3n minus 1. No, 3n minus. Oh, yeah.
But what does that need though?
3 parentheses n minus.
So let's do it. What's 1 less than it? N minus 1, but 3 times that. You see how I use parentheses? Have that? Anybody confused about the setup here? This was not, it's pretty simple actually, right? If you take each of these one thing at a time, right? N minus 3 is just 3 less than it. And plus 1 is just 1 more than it, right? And this is just 3 times 1 less than it. Yeah? Isn't it? You know what 1 more means? It means the thing plus 1. You know what 3 less than something is? Thing less than. How do you get?
I don't know what you said.
Oh, that's a different issue. Anyway, what we're gonna do here?
Distribute the 3. Distribute it.
And then you get what?
N minus squared plus n minus 3n minus 3. 3n minus.
There we go. Yeah, let's clean up over here, right? We get n squared what? Everybody agree with that? Stop me if anybody gets stuck at any of these, right? Say something. What are we going to need to do now?
No, subtract your 3n minus 3.
No, that's this. I distributed this. What's n times n? Distribute the n, then distribute the negative 3. Has to equal 0, right? Does it equal 0 currently? How do we make that happen? Well, let's subtract 3n and then add 3. Do they have like terms under which to go? So this we under the right in the minus 3n and then plus 3 there. And what's that give us? Yeah, all right. And now we do what? You said this is the same, right? You got a quadratic, make it equal 0, factor it, set the factors equal to 0. It's kind of the same. Like the difference is like, all right, what method do you need to use to factor? So in this case here, is this going to be 2 sets of parentheses being multiplied? Because that's not a trinomial, right? You know what a trinomial is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Didn't seem too short. Well, how are we going to factor that n squared minus 5n?
And on the outside.
Well, what is it that you're talking about?
What do you mean? N.
Use math words. Describe what you're about to do.
N parentheses n minus 5.
All right, what's that called?
Factoring. I don't
Thank you. Wait, yeah, but what? Like, wow.
Distributing.
It's the opposite of distributing. Yeah, you're finding the GCF, right? And the GCF in this case is what?
N times n times.
N minus 5 equals 0. What do we do now? It's always the same. It's always the same. What do we do now?
0.
Set what to 0?
N equals 0.
Right,
Your
but the
n
factor
equals
is
0,
not.
and then your n minus 5
No, you said each factor is 0. Like we've always done. See that factor and that factor? So n equals 0 or what?
Or n equals 5.
Well, how do we solve this one?
It's already solved.
What it is? What's that equal over here?
5.
N equals 5. So is he correct? So we better answer that, right? So he is correct. Right? Know a little better about these?
No.
Well, what part of it do you not feel
All of
comfortable with? Oh, you really, you have trouble
Okay,
just,
I'm good
wait a
when it
minute.
comes to, like.
Do you have trouble adding, let's work backwards. Do you have trouble adding 5 to both sides?
No.
No, okay. Do you have trouble setting the factors equal to 0?
No.
All right, do you have trouble factoring?
No.
Anybody?
No.
If you do. Well, but I'm trying to show you they're all, it's like the same process for all of them, right? And you just follow that process. Like the biggest difference is, okay, once you get to where it equals 0 and you're going to factor it, okay, what method of factoring I'm going to use for this? So you just need to know what method of factoring you need to use for any given one of these, right? All right, so do you guys have trouble making it equal 0? Is that confusing? Because if it doesn't equal 0, you either add or subtract what's over here to make it 0. Do the same to this side, right? Do you have trouble combining like terms?
No.
Okay. Do you have trouble distributing?
No.
All right. Do you have trouble writing that n is the number?
No.
So maybe you have trouble, if n's a number, writing down 3 less than it. You have trouble writing down 3 less than the number if you call the number n?
No.
What would that be?
N
minus 3. Okay. I don't know if you guys are having as much trouble as you think you are. I think it's almost like you want to have trouble with it.
If you were to put a text in front of me on this,
Tomorrow.
no, of just this, in
Uh-huh.
front of me, I'm gonna be able to.
Well, let's look at now Regents questions. Some of these Regents questions have, I don't know why they're in here. But I think there's only 2 of them that relate to this. Like not this one. These are all for other sections we've already done. Number 3. All right, I want you to read number 3 on your own. You might do well to draw a diagram if it helps. Oh, it's a rectangle.
Patio.
Maybe outside your house, you had like a concrete pad or, you know, cinder treads or something like that, or your barbecue, you're sitting on it, maybe a lawn chair sitting on the patio or table. It's an outdoor gathering space.
Bedroom?
No, a bedroom is a bedroom. Is your bedroom outside and just consists of a concrete pad with no walls and roof?
Yeah, I don't discriminate. Maybe I'm a dog.
Maybe.
We're not number 1.
Do you notice it asked something about the area of the patio? What shape is the patio?
Rectangular.
Okay. Other than you, somebody please tell me. I'll find the area of a rectangle. Yeah. Do they tell you anything about the length and width in this?
Yeah.
What do they tell you?
That's your length is 7 feet to what the width.
All right. Yeah.
So
So if you draw a rectangle, let's say that this is the width and that side is the length.
So it would be L equals 7 W.
Yeah.
But it's being shown by AW.
But what?
AW.
That's area as a function of width. That's all. It's just function notation. It's like f of w, f of x. Doesn't matter. It's y.
So do you have to use 4? No.
Gosh. Area. What do you just told me what you multiply together to find the area of a rectangle.
Length times width.
Okay.
Before,
How about before we distribute? What would it be?
Oh, W plus 7.
The area is w plus 7?
A. No, is the A times W and then in parentheses. I don't think you get what I was trying to say.
I do not.
He got what I said. It's number 2.
Isn't that the area right there that I just wrote? Isn't that width times length?
That's what I said.
But oh no, that's not one of the choices. So try distributing it.
It's number square plus
W squared plus Choice two.
That was easy.
I
Could've
told
been
you.
choice one.
How could it be choice one?
Because she didn't distribute.
You didn't even multiply.
Yeah, but it's still.
Well, the area of a rectangle can't just be the length of one of its sides. So like if I measured this end of the desk here to be 24 inches, you're telling me that the area of the whole desktop is 24 inches. It's just 24 times, what is that, 18? All right, now the next one.
Number 5.
Yeah, probably. Let's see, this is, no, we're not doing that. So down to number 5. Oh, look at the throwing a rectangle in out of nowhere. I will say, there is one part, like, you know how you go to Thacker and you get halfway done, right? And you try to find numbers that multiply to something, add to something else. This one, you'll be finding numbers that have to multiply to a big number.
Really?
Might not, so I'll show you, if you grab a calculator, when you get to that point, I'll show you a trick that'll be helpful. So, get a calculator, read this over, grab a calculator,
Wait, what kind of calculator?
the graphing one. So we got this, it's a rectangle.
Yeah.
They tell you the length equals what?
6 inches more than half its width.
So let's write that down.
1/2.
Length is,
1/2 W plus 6.
there's half its width, and there's 6 more.
Don't forget to equals 432. Why did you?
That equals 432?
Oh,
No, it does not. What actually equals 42? 432.
That times 2 times the area.
The area, which is
Like that
times width, equals what? 432.
I'm so mesmerized.
So, what's our equation for area?
L
Hmm?
A W in parentheses 1/2 W plus 6
This is my length, W, width times length, equals 432, the area. That is width times length equals area. Width times length equals area.
What time do you think about it?
Or length times width. I did it width times length because so many W's in front. I don't like distributing from the back side. It just feels weird. You can, it's fine, but I don't like what. Now we distribute. Wait, it's just not the same as like anything else we do now with quadratics. What do we do, everybody?
1/2
Distribute.
squared
1/2 W squared plus
plus 6W equals 432.
432. Now, let's see who remembers something here. There's a couple ways we can do this. But one thing I do know,
I know.
for whatever reason, you gorillas don't like
I'm not a
fractions.
gorilla. No, I don't.
Well, then you're a
Wait,
retail
guys,
cleaner.
huh?
You hate fractions. No, what?
Where's minus?
Oh, never mind. Yeah.
Distribute, yes. Now,
Minus 432.
well, no, hold on. Before we do that, who remembers what I showed you to get rid of a fraction here?
You just cross it out. You take your right side. No, you just
No, I showed you how to do this.
You multiply it. So equal to 1 multiplied by 1/2, right? Reciprocal.
Okay. But I have to, you say multiply by 2?
No, yeah, but 2 over 1.
Sure.
You find the reciprocal. Where you
What
multiply
if
by
I-
the reciprocal.
If you multiply 1/2 by 2, what does it become?
2
Which is
2 1.
1. Yeah, 1. Right? So if I have 1/2 and I multiply it by 2, I don't have a fraction anymore, do I? Okay. So how could I make that fraction go away?
Multiply by 2.
Multiply what by 2 exactly?
Your whole thing.
You can't just multiply one thing, right? Everything in there's got to get multiplied by 2, right?
Yeah.
Right? So,
Isn't that
So
the
what?
reciprocal?
yeah, of course it is 2 over 1.
So why
Why? What does this give us then?
1W or just W squared
W squared plus
plus 12W
12W equals
64.
864. Big deal. See, no more fraction, right?
Yay!
Okay.
Minus 864.
You mean subtract it?
Minus 864.
Don't we have to do like a compound?
No, not yet. Well, wait, first, you're at the factor stage. One more, we have to, before we factor, it has to equal what?
0.
Let's make it equal 0 by doing what, Hannah?
Minus
Wait, Hannah, what does it currently equal? All right, so how do we turn that 864 to a 0?
minus 864.
Subtract it from both sides and equal something, right?
I wasn't even touching, I don't think.
Does it have a like term over here, Hannah? So it's just gonna end up, it's right, it can't combine with these two, right? So it just gets tacked on, yeah? W squared plus 12W minus 864 equals 0. I kid you not.
I have to find a number that multiplies.
Yeah, and that's where I said I have a little trick. Well, first of all, now we do what?
Oh, my stomach.
Hannah, what do we do now? You said it a minute ago, you were a step ahead. Well, factor it, right? GCF is one method, right? Is there a GCF?
No.
No. But it's trinomial, right? Is it the simpler one that you get halfway done? Okay, all right. So let's do that. W equals 0. Now, I know what you're thinking, oh my God, how do I find numbers that multiply to negative 864 and also head to what? Maybe you can find it by tinkering around with it. And I did, but you guys,
Not 6.
not me. Someday you might be. Eat your vegetables. Wait, I don't even eat vegetables. So. Let's try this. We want to have two numbers that multiply to negative 864, right? So one number times another equals negative 864, right? That means that negative 864 divided by one of those numbers equals what?
12.
The other number.
The other number. Yeah. 12 and 7.
Pay attention. Where's my calculator? All right, got your calculators?
Yeah.
Bring up a graph,
Of course.
okay?
864 divided by.
So we're just going to use a tip. Now, listen, it's negative 864, is it not?
Yeah, so it's going to be 2 negatives.
Anyway, so I'm going to do y, negative 864 divided by x, right?
And then you guys can solve too.
Enter. I don't even want to see the graph. The graph's not going to show up here. It's too
What?
big. I need the table of values to solve.
Wait, I think mine messed up.
Mine did too. No, it just didn't show up because we're too.
Does yours look like this?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I had like 7, 8, 3, 5, or 3, 9.
There are a lot of negative numbers in the world.
Do you know what else is negative?
Anyway,
My feeling.
let's bring up a table of values. Right? So menu, table, sure.
Easier way to do it.
Now look,
Oh.
this is negative 864. All these are negative 864 divided by these numbers here. What does that mean about, say, these two numbers?
2 times negative 4.
That means these pairs of numbers are numbers that multiply to negative 864.
So we gotta go down to 12.
Well, so you find these, you agree that this and that multiply to negative 864, right?
Yeah.
So find the two numbers that also add to what? Positive 12. Scroll through and find two numbers. All of those pairs meet the multiplying to negative 864.
I don't know.
Negative. Just keep scrolling until you find two that maybe they're separated
24
by
and negative 36.
24 and
No.
negative 36. Okay, they have to add to positive 12, right?
No, negative 24 and positive 36.
24, 930.
Yeah, negative 30.
Do these, because you put this in your calculator, right? These two numbers, you do know that they will multiply to negative 864.
Yeah.
So they cover that, right? Well, what's 36 minus 24, guys?
Well,
There's your 12. So those, there's our two numbers. You get the idea? Do you get this trick?
no.
You don't?
No.
If I have x times y, right, equals negative 864,
Yeah.
that means that y equals what?
Negative 8.
864 divided by x. Doesn't it?
Yeah, I get this totally.
Okay.
Next.
What's, think of it this way. What's 2 times 5, kids?
10.
That means that 10 divided by 5 is
10.
2, right? Number times number is negative 864. That means negative 864 divided by one of the numbers, right?
Equals X.
Is any of these. So all these pairs multiply, okay? And you scroll to until you find the pair that add up to the thing you need in the middle, right? So it's 36 and negative 24. So plus 36 minus 24.
I did it the other way. I just put some
Doesn't matter. Okay?
that it's a 0.
Now it's the same every time. What do we do now with these two factors, kids?
W plus 36. That's a 0. W equals negative 36 or W equals
What does one of the W's equal?
negative 36.
What about that?
What about it?
Yeah, what about it? Is that the width of our rectangle, really?
No.
I mean, it's correct algebraically. What is that? Could that possibly be the width of our rectangle?
No, you have to divide them by 2.
Remember, disregard the negatives when we have a problem like this.
Oh!
I'm not going to have negative lengths.
Oh.
What about over here?
W equals 24.
Is it in inches?
Where?
No. Inches, feet, what was it? I can't.
Inches?
Inches, okay. So there's one answer. Are we done?
No. Oh, you divide by 2?
What do we need to find now?
So 36.
How do I find the length now that I know the width?
Mhm.
Everybody see, right? So length equals what?
Length equals 1 W plus 6.
24 plus 6. What's half of 24?
12.
Plus 6,
18.
18 inches. We'll check it real quick. What's 24 times 18?
24 times 18.
Yeah.
Something that ends with 2.
You got to cut the right in front of you.
432.
And that's the area. Okay?